Hello, I'm Pastor Horace Douty in Lexington, Virginia, and each Thursday I bring you a local history lesson, and I am quoting from one of the two volumes that I've written about local history, and these books are available in Lexington at Downtown Books and also at the Bookery, and I think there's a way you can get them as well, other ways you can get them. But anyway, the title of the book is History Lessons from a Country Church. Today, well, first, I want to encourage you, if you like these videos, then click on like or click on Horace Douty YouTube, and then click subscribe and like, and then click on the little bell icon so that you will be notified when they're up. And share these videos with your friends and your family. I appreciate it. Today, the title of the history lesson is Little Mary Moore, a True Survivor. James Moore and his wife Martha Pogue thought they were making the correct decision when they packed their possessions and moved out of Rockbridge in 1775. At the time, James and Martha had 4 children, and they settled in Abbs Valley near Tazewell, and then the couple had 5 more children, and the first of those was Mary, who developed into an unusually pretty girl with striking auburn hair. Life went well down there for 9 years. The valley was beautiful, the land was fertile, a 10-foot waterfall behind the house made constant murmurs for the log home. James Moore was a patriot who had served as an officer in the Revolutionary War, and now he was prospering as a very successful farmer and father of a happy family. However, in the autumn of 1784, James' 15-year-old son James disappeared, James Jr. The few neighbors in the region joined the frantic search. Seeing moccasin tracks merging with the boy's footprints, it was soon determined that James Jr. had been killed or captured by Indians. And until this time, there had been no evidence of danger from the red man. Little did the Moore family realize the horror yet to come. A year passed. Then in June of 1786, it happened. A band of Indians swooped down upon the home, killing the father and 3 children. 6 people were taken captive: the mother, Martha, her baby, Margaret, her daughter Jane and Mary, and the little son John. And there was a visiting neighbor girl named Martha Evans. All were hustled into the surrounding forest, beginning a forced march that for Mary Moore and Martha Evans would encompass hundreds of miles. Poor little John, too small to keep up the pace, was clubbed to death on the second day. Mary was forced to endure the sight of his scalp hanging from the belt of the exuberant murderer day after day. And then a few days later, baby Margaret, crying from pain and exposure, was snatched from her mother's arms and smashed against an oak tree. The tiny corpse was scornfully draped over Mary's shoulders for some miles and then flung into the forest undergrowth. Could anything get more horrible? Yes, it could. Weeks later, we find our 9-year-old heroine, Mary, with a stick, burying the charred bones of her mother and her sister Jane, who had been tied to trees and burned alive. Mary Moore and Martha Evans survived through cold and hunger and unbelievable cruelty as they trudged through snow and went all the way to Canada. And there they lived with their captors for a year or more until Mary was sold as a slave to a cruel Canadian, and somehow she stayed alive just barely. And then a miracle finally happened. Mary's brother James, lost 3 years earlier, reappeared right there in Canada. The strong young man had won the respect of his captors and had been made one of them and was free. Although James had learned to live content as an Indian, he was determined to bring his 11-year-old sister home. With the untiring help of Thomas Evans, Martha's father, the two girls finally walked back. It took another year, making Mary Moore 12 years old when she was reunited with her relatives right here in Rockbridge County, Virginia. She grew to adulthood with her uncle Joseph Walker at Fancy Hill. They were active in the Falling Springs Church. And Oxford's pastor, Daniel Blaine, fell in love with Mary. And they became engaged to be married. And were getting ready, the whole church was getting ready to celebrate a wedding. However, Mary suddenly changed her mind, and in the autumn of 1798 married another preacher instead, Reverend Samuel Brown of Timber Ridge and New Providence churches. And from all accounts, Mary had made a good move. The marriage was happy, and her husband enjoyed success. They built a beautiful large brick home, Bellevue, in scenic Hayes Creek Valley, where they lived out their lives surrounded by an extraordinary loving congregation. They also ran a classical school. And when Reverend Brown died, Mary kept the family of 9 children together at Bellevue. 5 of her sons became distinguished pastors, as did 12 of her grandsons and great-grandsons. 17 clergymen from one family. 12 of the girls in that same generation married pastors. Almost all were Presbyterians, bringing the total to 29 clergymen. And that school in Bellevue produced an amazing array of scholars and statesmen, including James McDowell, who became governor of Virginia, Alexander Gallatin McNutt, governor of Mississippi. Mary's oldest daughter, Frances, married the new parson, James Morrison, who moved into Bellevue and kept the school functioning. And they added to the family with children of their own. Reverend Sam and James together served New Providence Church for 60 years. Mary, who never topped 100 pounds in weight, suffered insomnia after her husband's death. So she had a rocking bed built to fit her, and it gave her some relief. She never spoke of her childhood ordeal, but those horrors so tormented her sleep that she was awake all night. But Mary's cradle bed is now on display at the Rockbridge Historical Society building in Lexington. This amazing little lady with red hair left us quite a legacy. She and her husband now rest in New Providence Church Cemetery, just outside the church door.